I feel like when people come to YouTube, they're looking not only to be entertained, but also informed. They come to this platform looking for answers. I certainly have learned so much about so much on this platform. And I feel like in the videos that I've seen, when people ask questions, they often are asking it as a setup to answer the question themselves. This video is going to be different. See, I've been really interested in the goth subculture for a while, but never really called myself a goth out of respect for the culture and fear of being called a poser. Not to mention starting a potential conflict or having my feelings hurt. But seeing the turnout in my last video and the fascinating comments you all left has inspired me and given me the confidence boost I needed to ask more of these burning questions. I'm very interested to see what you all think, and hopefully this conversation can help those lurking just outside of the community like I am. Anyways, without further ado, I'd like to start by asking some questions about the music. One of the most repeated things I hear goth creators say, and I even said it myself in my last video, is that if you want to be goth, you gotta listen to the music. And some of these creators even put playlists on Spotify to get people started, which I think is awesome. But when these creators say, listen to the music, what exactly does that mean? Or more specifically, how much and how often? I ask this because while I like goth music, it's not my number one genre. Now, to be fair, I listen to a little bit of everything. Goth, punk, hip-hop, metal, pop, funk, vaporwave, you name it. And if I haven't heard of it, I'm open to checking it out. I just like music. But if I wanted to earn my goth card, would goth music need to be my number one genre? And speaking of goth genres, are there certain genres that are specifically considered goth? From what I know, there's post-punk, goth rock, dark wave, and ethereal, but are there any I'm missing? Also, what about songs that sound goth but aren't goth? One of the songs I have in my personal goth playlist is The Sun Always Shines on TV by Aha. I heard it in the background of a goth video once and I really liked it. I added it to my goth playlist, but I took another look and Aha is the same band that made Take On Me, which is easily on a list of the most popular songs from the 80s. I looked a bit further, and Google says that the song's genres are R&B/soul, alternative/indie, and pop. Wikipedia says synth pop and pop rock? Are any of these pop-adjacent genres goth? I didn't think they would be, but if they are, perhaps it's the sound that matters more than the genre? If that's true, then is After Dark by Mr. Kitty a goth song? What about if a song has a horror theme, like Freak by Suburban? Can that be goth? What about the Monster Mash? Basically, how is one to be certain that what they're listening to is certified goth or not? What are some things or sounds they can look or listen for so they know they're on the right path? Or what if someone didn't want to leave the Susie Bauhaus Sisters of Mercy bubble? Is leeway allowed so you can still be considered goth? I would assume that if goth music is something you're really into, then you'd be looking for more of it. But I can also envision a person that finds what they like and just sits there. So I like to ask these questions to fully understand the range of what is and isn't considered to be real goth. My next set of questions has to do with various forms of other media, such as movies, TV, books, and games, and how they fit into the goth subculture. One of my most burning questions that I had when I started my goth journey was about horror. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of horror. I like horror themes and things like vampires and ghosts and such, but actual slasher, torture, or seriously terrifying paranormal films are not really my jam. During my research, I was told that being into horror is not a requirement for being into goth, which was a huge relief. However, taking a look at the subculture as a big picture would make it seem that horror is pretty integrated into the scene. So I'd like to ask about the specifics. Is it required to be in the scene? Would one have a difficult time meshing with others in the subculture if horror wasn't their vibe? What if someone likes certain types of vampires and monsters, or horror themes in general, but not actual horror? Is that enough to earn them their goth card? If movies and TV shows are important to the scene, is there a list of essential goth films somewhere so someone knows what to watch? Would watching those films earn you the goth title? What if you've only seen a bunch of movies and TV shows, but haven't listened to the music? And all these questions are just for movies and TV, but what about books? My last video had a comment about Gothic literature and its importance in the subculture, especially since it predates the music by several decades. But in response to that was another comment about the difference between goth and gothic, as those are supposedly two separate things. I can see validity in both comments, so I'm not really sure what the answer is, and I'm not much of a reader myself, to be honest. I know of Bram Stoker because of Dracula, and I'm certainly familiar with Edgar Allan Poe, since I learned about him in school, but I haven't really read much of anything else. My only goth-related reads are Gothic Charm School, which I didn't finish, and this Emily the Strange hardcover comic collection that I have, which I also didn't finish. But all of that aside, is reading required to earn my goth card? Do I need to have read or at least understand Gothic literature? And if I do, what work should I know? I also wanted to ask about video games. As a gamer myself, I'm especially intrigued if there are any goth video games out there, and if they'd help me earn my place within the community. I know that this is an overwhelming amount of questions, but I haven't even asked about the fashion yet. And this specific facet of the goth subculture is particularly fascinating to me, because I feel like the fashion is the visually defining thing about the goth subculture, and some goths don't seem to really care about it. For example, in my last video, I asked if a normie were to listen to goth music but not dress the part, would they be accepted in the community? A few comments said fashion didn't matter as long as they listened to the music, and another comment said that a person would have a hard time at first, but once people got to know them, everything would be okay. So it seems like fashion doesn't really matter all that much to some, and that the music is the main thing that keeps everyone together. Which makes sense, I suppose. So are goths not worried about their fashion being copied? Or other generations or scenes lifting major elements of their fashion and trying to rebrand it as their own? Or has that already happened? Perhaps that was the birth of separating goth fashion from the subculture as a whole? Could that be the reason goth fashion can stand on its own without being directly attached to the main subculture? But then if that's the case, how can you determine real from poser? Is only having the look and not the music still part of what's considered being a poser nowadays? Like I mentioned in my last video, I feel like there are a lot of musicians with a gothy look, but none of the music that they put out is actually goth at all. And I feel like a very new and blind Baby Bat, or even those outside of the scene, could become easily confused. And in my personal opinion, that's when things get mislabeled, then corrections happen, then debates happen, and then you get YouTubers that ask 1.5 million questions in one video because they just want to know what the hell is going on. Anyways, if there's one thing that seems to be consistently mentioned by the majority of the goth community, besides the music, it's that being a part of said community physically is an important aspect of the scene. Goth nights, goth clubs, concerts, meetups, and so on are really the things that seem to be the ultimate source of what the goth subculture is really all about. And while I think that's beautiful and does make a lot of sense, I like to question the opposite. Can someone still be goth and perhaps a bit more introverted, private, shy, or to themselves? For example, concerts. Are going to them necessary if one wanted to call themselves a goth? Or what if you just went to one? Is that enough? If someone went to one single goth night at a club somewhere, would that be enough to call themselves a goth? House parties were mentioned in a different video I watched several years ago, but as appealing as the idea seems on paper, I don't think I would ever do it personally. But if someone else did, could they get their goth card? And for all of these, how many times do you even need to attend to be considered a goth? And truthfully, how is the goth card even given to you in the first place? With the goth subculture being as social as it seems to be, I would imagine that the title would need to be acknowledged or passed on to you by someone that was a part of it, which, if you've seen my last video, was part of my cringy teen behaviors and why I don't refer to myself as a goth today. I don't want to misrepresent the community by just calling myself a goth, but not actually practicing it properly. I'd like to be someone that can steer people in the right direction with accurate information, but I need to know what that information is and its technicalities and loopholes first. I'd also like to know all of this for myself as well. I sometimes wonder if perhaps I have earned my goth card and didn't even realize it, or if a goth card exists at all. I feel like I still have more work to do, though, as I kind of view myself as stuck in baby bat purgatory. The goth subculture has always been something that I've seen from afar and just kinda enjoyed privately. People in my life know that I'm into it, but they don't really share those interests. The most I've seen of goth IRL is only at the various comic conventions I've been to over the years, or in cities that can actually support the lifestyle. Plus, as an outside spectator, goth has always seemed kind of like a unique kind of other category of person. I keep being told that it's just about the music, but with so many other aspects built up around it, it just seems like it's more than that at times. It's a bit mysterious, honestly, and I think that's part of its allure. And while I have gotten some answers to the mysteries of the goth subculture, I feel like some of the answers are a bit vague. And I'm the type of person that works better with specifics, as I struggle to fully understand things without them. But now I leave this to you guys. What do you think about this? Do you have any answers to these questions? Please share your knowledge in the comments. I'm so excited to learn more about the subculture. And of course, if you liked this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you all again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!